everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's me, your favorite Ohioan. So today we're going to be doing a pretty unlikely scenario, but one that I think is very interesting because it highlights the kind of collapse and the new coalitions made in between each party. So obviously, we're going to do a matchup between Mitt Romney, who is a Republican senator from Utah, and Joe Manchin, who is a Democratic senator from the great state of West Virginia. And I think this is an interesting matchup because it really highlights the way the parties have shifted. Everyone talked about the Southern strategy and the how the South shift and how the Democrats went from being the conservative party to the liberal party, and the Republicans did the same, or vice versa, I should say. And I don't really buy into that. There definitely is parts of that that were true. I don't necessarily buy into the whole Southern strategy thing. I think that was just more of demographic and cultural trends that just ended up happening to the parties because the Republicans have had very conservative factions in them all the way back to the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. So the Republican Party has always had a very conservative populist faction. We saw that in Dwight Eisenhower, and the new right coalition in the 1940s opposing FDR. So I don't really buy the whole Southern strategy thing completely, but I do think there is some merit to it. I'm going on a tangent there. I apologize, but I just thought it would be interesting if we compare Joe Manchin, who's kind of like the last major blue dog. He's socially conservative. He's pro-life. He's anti-gay. He's anti-CRT, but he's socially pretty liberal. He's very pro-coal. He's not much of a whole climate change kind of guy. Versus Mitt Romney, who is a moderate to liberal Republican. It's crazy. He's from Utah and he's a Mormon. He's Mitt Romney's from the most socially conservative demographic in this country. Maybe other than Protestants in the South, but even then, or Amish, but even then that's eh. But anywho, I think it's funny how Mitt Romney comes from the most socially conservative demographic, but yet is one of the most socially liberal senators in terms of the Republican Party, of course. So we're going to start filling in the safe states for each side. The safe states for Mitt Romney include pretty much all the Great Plains states, as you would expect. Most of the Deep South. I think Romney would still win West Virginia by a safe margin, although it would be it would only be like R plus 15 instead of like R plus 40. I think Manchin would do very well in West Virginia, but it's just so Republican that I don't see a way that Manchin wins it. Like I said, I think instead of like a R plus 40 state like West Virginia was in 2020, it's more like an R plus 15, R plus 20 state. But still, Mitt Romney wins West Virginia. Similar story with Indiana. It's closer, but it's not super close. And that also, in the state of Alaska will probably also be safe for Mitt Romney. A lot of libertarian-esque types who didn't really like Trump. And also probably the state of Texas as well. I think although Romney might lose some ground with Hispanic working class voters in South Texas, he would do much better in the suburbs of like Dallas and Houston, Fort Worth, and I don't think Manchin would really energize the voters in Austin, Texas, which is basically the Democrats' main group in Texas is Austin, and with Joe Manchin being a slightly more liberal not liberal, more conservative Democrat, he wouldn't energize those more liberal voters. So I think Romney would probably win Texas by a safe margin. Um, Looking at the West Coast, I do think not Mitt Romney, excuse me, Joe Manchin would win all these states by a safe margin. I think a lot of progressives in like Seattle and Portland wouldn't turn out, so it'd be a little closer. But I think Manchin would still win because there's no way that the blue-haired progressive Bernie Bros in Seattle and Portland, there's no way those guys are going to be voting for Romney. Let's be honest with ourselves. So it would be cool to possibly see like a tilt R Oregon or a lean R Washington in this scenario. It's not going to happen. Those people may not like Joe Manchin, but they're not going to vote for Mitt Romney. Similar story on the East Coast. However, I think Manchin actually overperforms in some states. He also wins New York by a safe margin. I also think at Maine at large in Maine's first district. But in states like New Jersey, Rhode Island, Delaware, more working class populist states, I think Joe Manchin actually outperforms Biden and Hillary. I think Joe Manchin does very well in a state like Rhode Island or a state like Delaware, parts of southern New Jersey. I think he wins back that coalition. So yeah, Joe Manchin will do very well in my opinion. Some of these areas, in like very liberal progressive areas like Vermont and Massachusetts, Romney might do a little bit better because that's kind of where he's from, and Romney's also more of a moderate liberal on social issues. He's still a conservative on social issues though, overall, which is why I don't think he would do super well. And even when he ran in 2012, Romney really didn't energize these voters against Obama, so I don't see a reason that he would do that when he become even more polarized 12 years after that in 2024. I also think Manchin would win the state of Illinois by a safe margin. Um, Pretty self-explanatory. It's a safety state, although it is trending right. I think Romney would do very well in the suburbs of Chicago, like maybe DuPage County, a place like that. He might outperform Trump there. Manchin would undo a lot of the rural southern Illinois margins, do much better there. So Illinois would be safety still. And with that, this is the map between Romney and Joe Manchin thus far. Let's start filling in the likely states. We have, as you can see, this map is very interesting because it's a lot more competitive. There's a lot more closer states. Anywho, we're going to fill the likely states for Mitt Romney. They include states of Montana, South Carolina, and I believe that is it. Yeah, that's all Romney's likely states. Montana is probably just be barely under 10. I think Manchin would do very well with minors and more union types in the western part of the state, and while Romney might do a little bit better in like the city areas. I mean, Montana is only like an R+16 state, and it's a very populous to working class state. So I don't think Romney would do very well there. I think he only barely won it by safe margin in 2012 anyway. So against the Joe Manchin type, who would really energize union and working class voters near the Idaho border, and in that part, the western part of the state, I think Joe Manchin would barely get it under 10. Romney would still win it though. Similar story with North Carolina. Manchin would probably energize some more conservative African American voters, and he'd probably do it better in the northern part, the working class Appalachian part. He wouldn't win it, but he'd make it a little more competitive. So that the likely states for Joe Manchin actually include Maine second district, Minnesota, Colorado, and New Mexico. Um, in Maine's second district, it's a very working class state. It voted for Obama twice by like safe margins. Then went to Trump by like safe margins. It voted. It's very populous, very working class. I think Joe Manchin would be able to win it by a likely margin. I think it'd be a huge shift that we saw from Obama to Trump. Only this time from Trump to Manchin. In Minnesota, very similar story in Minnesota. Manchin would probably underperform a little bit in the suburbs of Minneapolis, but he'd do just as well in the Iron Range and the rural areas. So I think he'd still win it by a likely margin. Colorado and New Mexico, Romney would do better in the suburbs of Denver and in some like that parts of the state, but Manchin and the Democrats have gained so much ground in Denver from transplants from California that there's no way Colorado is anywhere under likely D. So New Mexico, it's very interesting. I think Romney would do better in the in the in like Albuquerque, Santa Fe suburbs. I think Romney would do much better there. But I think a lot of the more the rural working class Hispanics would turn out heavily for Joe Manchin. So state would narrow up a little bit anyways, but I do think that in the end it would go to Joe Manchin by a likely margin. So with that, we have the likely states for each side out of the way. A lot of lean states, a lot of tilt states, and we are going to start with Mitt Romney's lean states. Mitt Romney's lean states include states of North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Florida. I don't see Manchin. The only reason that the Democrats won in Georgia in 2020 was because they got huge turnouts in Atlanta. I don't really see Joe Manchin doing that. A lot of the people moving there are young, millennial, progressive types. And while I think they would still vote for Joe Manchin, I don't think he would get the crazy margins he got. Joe Manchin might do a little bit better in like North Georgia, Appalachia, but it really wouldn't be enough to undo the huge margins Romney would get, the huge gains Romney would make in the suburbs and in the rural, like southern Georgian areas that would turn out heavily for Mitt Romney, because those areas are just like 80, 90 plus for any Republican. So I don't think Manchin would be able to undo those trends. And with Romney doing a little bit better in the Atlanta suburbs, I think it would actually lean to Joe Manchin. Similar story with North Carolina. I just don't see. North Carolina is a titanium leaner state. Manchin might do a little bit better in like the Appalachia parts, but really the suburbs of like Raleigh and Charlotte and Wilmington are gonna turn out heavily for Mitt Romney. Similar story with Florida. Like I said, the Manchin's conservatism might be a little appealing to Hispanics. He might undo some trends there. And a similar story with the Panhandle, but I do think Romney would just do so well. Romney already did decently with Hispanics, and I think Romney would continue the trends with suburban voters in Florida. That although it would be much closer, I think he'd only win it by like a point compared to Trump would win it by like 6 to 7. I think Romney would win in the state of Florida by about a point or so. With that, the lean states for actually no, we have one more lean state from around the state of Arizona. Arizona is it's a pretty conservative state, and I think that the Maricopa County, I think it's gonna vote Arizona's gonna vote Republican anyway, but I think Maricopa County is a more Republican leaning area, and it would turn out for Mitt Romney, and I think Romney would win Arizona by a lean margin, probably about a point or two. So with that, we're gonna film the lean states for Joe Manchin. They include states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Actually, believe it or not, the state of Iowa as well. I don't see any way Mitt Romney wins in Iowa. Iowa is a very working class, very populous state. Mitt Romney, he might do a little bit better in like some suburbs of like, I don't know, Des Moines or something, but Manchin's going to undo every trend that Trump had in every other part of the state. So I think Iowa's closer than it was than in 2012 when Mitt Romney went against Obama. But I think in the end, Manchin wins in the state of Iowa. Similar story across the rest of the Rust Belt, just because of trends and Romney doing a little bit better in the suburbs. I think that they're lean, but overall, Manchin wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania by like 4 points or so. So yeah, Rust Belt, Romney would do very poorly in there. Virginia, Romney would do much better in like Nova. He'd probably get Youngkin margins in Nova and Virginia Beach, but Manchin would do much better in the Appalachia part of the state, and because of that, I think that in the end, the state would still go to Joe Manchin, but it would be much more closer. The state of Nevada is also going to lean to Joe Manchin. I don't see a way Romney wins there. Maybe he does a little better in like Reno, but Joe Manchin would basically make up every gain that Democrats lost with working class Hispanics near Las Vegas. So Joe Manchin would easily win Nevada, probably about 3 or 4 points or so. Because like I said, while Romney may do a little better with suburbanites near Reno, Manchin would do very well with working class Hispanics in a place like North Las Vegas. This leaves the three most competitive places, in my opinion, in my home state of Ohio, state of New Hampshire, and Nebraska's 2nd District. I believe Nebraska's 2nd District would lean to Mitt Romney. Romney's a good fit for that area. It's very suburban. It's center right. It's not super conservative, but it is semi-conservative, and I think Mitt Romney would do very well there. Manchin would probably make it competitive just because it is a detrending area. But like I said, I just don't see Manchin winning it. It's very suburban. It's just a good fit for Romney. My home state of Ohio, I believe that state would lean to Mitt Romney. Maybe tilt, actually. I think Ohio would actually tilt to Mitt Romney because I think Joe Manchin would do much better across Appalachia and up into like a place like Mahoning County. So although Manchin would definitely outperform every Democrat, he'd probably get Obama margins in like a place like Mahoning County. I don't think he'd actually get Obama margins. I think a lot of those places are just more Republican trending areas. So I think Manchin would definitely outperform Biden and Hillary in Southern Ohio and like a place like Mahoning County and the working class parts of the state. I think Romney would still do decently in that area. He would lose a lot of lose Mahoning County, but he'd still make up decent margins, and I think he would improve in a couple suburbs such as Delaware County or Wood County and near Columbus and Toledo. So although Manchin would outperform the Democrats in the working class parts of the state, Romney would do a little bit better in the suburbs, which would make up for that. So Romney would very narrowly hang out in the state of Ohio, and this leads New Hampshire, which I believe I'm very iffy on New Hampshire. I'm not sure where it would go honestly because Manchin's populism and social conservatism very nearly won Trump the state, but Romney still lost it to Bush. But then again, incumbent factor. So really, I'm torn on New Hampshire. I'm not really sure who'd win. I think I'd probably go to Mitt Romney by like a tilt margin. It'd be super close though. Um, like I said, Romney, he's very good in the suburbs, and I think he'd do well in like Manchester and like the places that are kind of like the never Trump places. But I gotta also see Manchin doing very well in the rural parts of the state and in those same areas, just because those areas they trend so far to the left and so far to the right. It's not even funny. So I really have no idea where New Hampshire would vote. If I had to make a prediction, I would say New Hampshire, but I really have no idea. So with that, this is my 2024 prediction between Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment below what you think, and remember, like and subscribe and get us to 1,000 subscribers so we can set up a Discord and we can get a face cam for live streams. So sub goal 1,000 before April 6th, the 1-year anniversary of this channel being made. So again, thank you.